Hello everyone, I am the host of Real Talk with Karia Christopher. Our conversations will be intent, focused, inspiring, and yes, eye-opening. Join us as we bring to you Real Talk 2020. Sit back and relax as we get ready for a new episode of Real Talk with Karia Christopher right now, proudly powered by Flow. Hello BVI, and of course, hello the world. Welcome back to my show, Real Talk with Karia Christopher 2020. It's been an amazing first month experience. I want to take this time to thank everyone, every single person who has stopped and called, emailed, text, persons that I don't even know. It's just a refreshing thing to feel the energy from persons who support me. Today I'm especially excited because I believe this is somebody that, can I say the whole world perhaps want to hear from? Because I feel like I niched something really good today. It's a wonderful day here at the Karia Christopher Studios as we're delighted to have my friend, Mr. Myron Walwyn. Welcome to Real Talk 2020.
Thank you, Karia. It's a pleasure to be here with you. And I certainly want to also join with other persons who have called to congratulate you. I sent you a message. You know how proud I am of you all the time. And you're doing a wonderful job, and I want to encourage you to keep doing what you're doing.
I appreciate it. Yes. It's like Christmas here in the studios because we have Mr. Myron Walwyn here. And we're going to not even hold any punches. We're going to go straight into it. It feels kind of strange to not say Honorable Myron Walwyn. So I'm going to just go straight. You look great. You don't look stressed. You're smiling good. He's still wearing them Gucci clothes. So he's good. How has it been a year now after politics?
Well, one of the things, Karia, and I'm sure I would have done this with you, whenever persons who meet me who would have known me for a long time, and they come with the honorable story, I say, call me Myron.
You have been always saying that.
That has what it's been, because I've never taken it that seriously. Yes, it's an honor certainly to serve, but you can't let it get to you to the point that people who know you, your friends and so forth, feel as if they can't call you by your normal name, and I certainly insist upon that. It has been an interesting year, a year certainly of transitioning from one era in my life, certainly back to another. The thing is, when I reflected on it, I remember when I was being called to the bar about 13 years ago, a young lady seconded my call, and she said to me, certainly to the court, in open court, that law is a jealous lover, suggesting that you can't do anything else when you're doing law.
Indeed.
But I found out that is not true. The jealous lover is politics. Because really when you do that,
yes,
and when you really put your all into it, like I believe I did, holding a ministerial post and still, of course, trying to be as accessible as I could to the entire Virgin Islands, it took a lot of your time and a lot of things that you in your personal life, for instance, my businesses. I had my legal firm and other things that I was involved in. Certainly needed me. So I'm happy to return back, even though, yes, I wanted to serve, but you have to respect the democratic process. I did that, and now I'm back into my business. A year has passed. I think I've transitioned fairly well.
We're going to get to the new life of Myron Walwyn, but you'll have to forgive me because I have to go back a little bit.
No problem.
Just for the viewers. Is it fair to say that on that, I believe, 25th day of February, you probably would have already saw the writing on the wall in terms of your party not winning the government? But is it fair to say when you learned that you personally lost your seat, it was a shock?
I wouldn't say it was a shock. What I did certainly along with our team is to put forward our programs. As an individual, I put forward the things that I believe I was able to do for the better with those things that were certainly under my charge. nothing is willed to anybody. It's politics at the end of the day. It's people's right to choose who they would like to serve them. Certainly we had some inherent difficulties.
Yeah.
Our party somewhat imploded, and then it got split into two.
Yeah.
And that, of course, tells you, that would affect your overall support base and so on. But regardless of what it is, the people of the Virgin Islands made a choice, and you have to respect the choice that they make. What was easier for me as an individual was that, and I can say this without fear of contradiction by anybody, my purpose for entering politics was to serve. And if it's to serve, meaning serve the people, and the people decide they no longer want you to serve them, but they want somebody else to serve them, then you take that graciously and you thank them for the ability or the time you had to serve. If it's personal, if you're there for other reasons besides service,
Right.
I believe you might take it a little harder.
Okay.
But I was able to transition back into my office. As a matter of fact, I was using, it wasn't that difficult of a transition in the sense that for a whole year and months, my law practice was almost the headquarters for the Ministry of Education.
Indeed.
Because right after the hurricane, there was,
I remember
you know
that.
what happened?
Yes, yes.
So the operations that I had at the moorings, that's where the staff would congregate
Right.
to get their plans together.
Yes.
In my office in town, that is where the senior staff met in our conference facilities and utilized those. Then you had issues of mold and so forth, so some of them couldn't go into the building. And then I stayed in the office because of the close proximity of my office to where the ministry was relocated. I stayed there because I didn't want to, I wanted the staff to be comfortable.
Understood.
And so I used our premises and, we'll go backward and forward
Free
and
of
so
charge?
forth. Free of charge.
Oh.
Karia, it's about service. And
I
that's
didn't
why
know
said,
that. I did not know that.
No, it's totally about service. The staff needed to have conference facilities, conference rooms to meet and do different things. And I would always tell the staff, the point I bring out is service. And the staff would tell you, I would always say to them, look, if you want anything, don't call my place because I don't want nobody call my name and nothing. So when they turn around and they call and they use my business place and I find out they have used it,
Yeah.
I tell my staff at my business, don't charge them.
Oh, okay. All right.
Because you just want to make sure that
Everything is above board.
that everything is above board.
So
And
let's
that's how
talk a little bit about that. You said something that a lot of politicians don't realize. When you enter that space, you give of yourself, but you give of your family and your business too. And as you said, politics is a jealous game, and I know that from all of the politicians that I've been really blessed to interview. But I would like to think that as a minister, a politician, a public officer, you would want to have a legacy during whatever tenure that you've ever had in that space. What would you say your legacy was or is?
Well, I'll preface that by saying that my legacy isn't written yet. That's the first thing I would say.
Oh, that means you might be going back.
I would say. Again, when you enter, and we're using politics as the example.
Of course.
You get in there trying to improve the things that you can.
Yes.
I never went in there with a legacy story that I want. If Myron was to pass away, they would say he did. No, it was, you dealt with what needed to be handled at the time. You set a manifesto, like any government would do, but the manifesto is a guide. It's to provide guidance and some understanding to the voters that this is where we would like to take the country for the next period of time. But when you get in there, sometimes there are things that you know that before you get to this, you have to address these matters. And there was quite a bit of those that when we got into office.
Pre-existing conditions, I like to call
Yeah, a
them.
number of pre-existing things.
Yes.
Certainly looking at, depending on the portfolio that you have, looking at the direction of where the world is going on a particular subject. Because it's a dynamic world that you're living in. And when you go out and you go to conferences and you see what is happening in various parts of the world, and you see the direction that the economy is going in, and so on, and particularly in education, for instance, you are providing a package for the business community. You can't exclude them.
I personally, and I say it all the time, as a very proud mother, I personally feel that education is the most important ministry in any country. Your duty is to assist in educating children for whatever country you are in charge of. And so that was a big hat, big shoes to fill. When you hear Myron Walwyn then and even now, one of the you don't hear a lot about, you do hear it, but in contrast or in comparison to some of the things, we know that you were in charge of youth, and that exploded in a beautiful way. You did the national song and the dress and the things that we were lacking for quite a while. And let me just commend you right here in this space for having that insight, for giving us a brand that we needed. I hope I don't get in trouble for that, but I think we owe you a thank you for that.
It's certainly an honor to do that.
I really feel so. But when you hear your name, there's a big stain about a wall. And you know I have to bring it up. This $1 million wall, can I say that almost landed you in jail? Because if you go off of what we read, and I want you to clarify, how do you feel about how the media portrayed you, and perhaps your opponents and anybody else who was in that space, really vilified you, if that's the right word, on the wall? Every single media house covered you in such detail, and to date, and correct me if I'm wrong, I don't know that we have a final word on it. What's your position there?
Well, the thing is, Karia, you have to know yourself and know who you are, and the people who are close to you and who know who you are too, and even some people who might spread things on you, they know who you are as well. It's the nature of the beast, certainly,
That's a big
in
beast.
Politics. I know but it is not something that I practice. It is not something that I practice. I try to look at bring a different layer of politics by properly informing people on things and allow them to decide. I don't stress the truth. I don't add on. I don't think if you are really in public service to serve, that you have to go down that road. If you go down that road of misleading people, misrepresenting things, going to people's houses during campaign and saying the nastiest things, it says to me that nobody don't do them kind of thing to serve. You do that when you want to perhaps serve yourself. Now, I know, for instance, that I have been honest in all my dealings since I've been in office. So I haven't lost sleep one night over that. What I did do, and I stood up for, was my staff and the people who I knew were working with me. They were honest, decent, hard-working people who just wanted to do good for the country. And when I heard some of the things, I couldn't, if you can't defend and support the people who are closest to you and who enable you to get the things done that you're trying to do, then you can't stand up for anybody else. I read the report and I know what it says. I don't agree with it in many respects, and that is still my position. But it is what it is. I certainly respect the role that the Auditor General and all the other persons who are involved in trying to do. I think, of course, towards the end, we're all trying to make sure that things are done in the best way that we possibly can. Could some things have done better? Of course. Any project you look at, there are always ways that things can be done in a different and better way. Was there any dishonesty? Absolutely, from where I sit. I know certainly not with Myron. And with the people that I worked with, the architect Steve Augustine, Lorna Stevens, my permanent secretary at the time, Dr. Potter, those are good, decent, hard-working people. I don't believe they're going to go out and do anything foolish. I certainly would not ask them to do anything foolish. And I think from them working with me, if they knew that I found out they were doing something foolish, it wouldn't be something that I would be quiet on, because we just try to make sure we do things the right and proper way.
So I forgot, y'all, that I'm speaking also to a learned lawyer. So he's very good with words. And we're going to finish with the wall now. But I just want to ask you, do you think that you're in danger of spending any time in jail because of the wall?
Absolutely not. I haven't. I want to encourage people to sometimes, and it's an unfortunate situation, and sometimes, Karia, it is certain factions in the community or certain people sometimes who might have their own agenda on certain things. They deliberately try to mislead people. We're not a community that read enough. We are sometimes headline readers. And even the media themselves sometimes know that we're headline readers. So they put the sensational stuff on the top thinking we're just going to read the headline. And then sometimes when you go into the bottom of things, you wonder, well, the headline is so different from what is inside the body of the story.
Right.
Or even if you hear something on the radio and then you see it reported and you go back and you hear it, you're wondering if you're speaking about the same story. And so I just want to encourage people to pick up things and read them. Because sometimes when people tell you things, people have their motives. They try to bend your mind and direct your thoughts, and try as best as possible to try to glean things for yourself. If there's literature somewhere, if there's information somewhere, in this particular case we're talking about a report, take a look at it and read it for yourself. I know sometimes the reading is boring, but it helps you at the end of the day to make an informed decision about certain things.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, you heard it directly from Mr. Myron Walwyn's mouth, and that will be it for me for the wall.
No problem at all.
Let's continue to talk about, and we're going to get to some of the more positive aspects. Sure. You'll forgive me if I just have to talk about these things that are pressing.
Ask me about the wall.
There you go. One of the things that you were very much known for, and I would say from where I stand, it was not 100% well. Most things are not well 100% received, but I can say with much certainty that this was very much not received very well. You added on one extra year, 12th grade. And one of the things that the new minister has now done was to remove the year. I read the entire news article, and I support what he did based on the statistics that were given in the article. Are you brave enough to sit here and admit that you made a wrong decision by adding a 12th grade?
Well, the thing is, I am not sure. And I must say to you, I really haven't been reading the news as much as I should.
Understood.
Because obviously I'm doing some other things now. Is the year removed or not removed? Because from what I've read, there seems to be some. I'm not sure. I think what I've been able to gather was that it's there, but if you need it,
right, right.
So I guess there'll have to be some sort of accountability or measuring stick in terms of who needs and who doesn't need and so forth. One of the things I would say to you in education. When I was there as minister, you might see me as a minister at the time articulating certain things. They're not all of my own. There was an education advisor who we had working with us, Dr. Charles Whitley. I don't think that you'll have great difficulties finding anybody in the BVI who understands education and who has been through whole ranks of education, like Dr. Whitley. I don't need to tout him. I think everybody knows Dr. Whitley. We had a very good permanent secretary in Dr. Marcia Potter. Dr. Potter, as you know, is an educator, has been through education at all levels. Very intelligent lady. She rose to the deputy chairman position in CXC. You don't get to that. And that is not a territory position.
Regional.
That's a position not based on the BVI. That's a position based on the individual. So that tells you something about the quality of persons. We had some very good education officers. Dr. Connie George, I always say Dr. George, if she's listening, Connie, finish your doctorate because you're an excellent person. I know you will do a good job.
Yes,
we had
of
a very
course.
good cadre, and the way we worked, that we sat down and talked through the things. Look at the pros and the cons, and we bring in other people and different subcommittees and so on. So even when you see things happening, there's a lot that's happening
On
at
the
the
back
back
end.
that you wouldn't see. When we were going through, and for instance, a person like Dr. Wheatley and other persons will tell you that an additional year in school was not a new concept. It wasn't born with Myron Walwyn at all. As a matter of fact, it happened years ago. I know people who were in sixth form at the time when they called it that. Lorna Smith, our good friend. Lorna and her team, I think her age group, were also part of that. There was a report that was done by the Caribbean Development Bank, goes back umpteens of years, suggesting that it needed to happen. The reality is, and we did our research as well, looking at the results through college, following through to not just college at HLSCC, but college abroad. We've even had instances where colleges abroad have written back to us and say your students have not carried out the requisite number of years. A child leaving school at 16 is, you're not even legal to drink properly. You're going to a bar at 16 and telling them you're in a rum, right? The premise of it was, let us try to look at the whole process, try to work on the mastery of the content that we're putting out to students. Let us try to expose them a bit more to the world of work on the soft skills, work on the skills that they need, because there are a number of students, and I see it in my own home. I have children. As a matter of fact, my daughter, I was persona non grata for her for a year, because she was part of the first set of students.
She was upset.
She wasn't pleased.
Of course.
But at the end of it, I think she saw what we were trying to achieve. To expose them a bit more to the world of work, develop those soft skills in them.
But is there anything in retrospect, and I get what you're saying, graduating at 16 could be tough for a lot of people. And whereas I might parent with my whole heart, the reality is that there are some parents out there who don't invest enough in their children. And I'm not talking about money, I'm talking about time, which is the most important thing to really drive a young person and to mold them. But in retrospect, and you said you didn't read the news, and I support that and I respect that, because you're in another space right now. Do you not see, and it's not a right or wrong answer, that there's some things that you perhaps should have done differently in terms of the people who were affected, the children and the parents most likely? The feedback was loud and raw, and a lot of people did not agree. And so it appeared that you painted everyone with the same brush. So where you would have those 16-year-olds that were not ready for the tertiary level, or even employment, there would be a good portion that you, in your call, would have been stagnating and not allow them to reach their full potential.
What we were able to do is to develop 3 tracks. You had a track for the students who were a little slower, that we needed to finish the curriculum with them and give them more time for teacher contact. You had the dually enrolled students. Those are students, your average students. There are a lot of them in the middle there, that were also doing pre-college classes and so forth, and you will build on that. And then you had your students who were your gifted students who were doing A-levels. So you weren't really keeping anybody back per se. You developed the tracks to go along with those persons. And of course, we had some interruption from the hurricane, so you didn't get a chance to build out some of the things that we wanted to build out eventually with it. Because the thing is with education, you wouldn't see sometimes all the benefits of a particular policy immediately. I mean, I think we were lucky enough to see some of the benefits of it because, for instance, for 2 years in a row, the BVI topped the OECS in CXC examinations. And I think that's a testament to some of the policy direction, some of the training, and all the different things that we were able to do around that whole thing. It wasn't just that one item of an additional year, but there were a number of other things. Out of that school of thought also came the technical school.
Right. I meant to congratulate you on
which
that
you need
too.
a particular level of time to prepare for.
Yeah, yeah.
You don't do something like that in 2 years.
Yeah.
And if you're getting students up to the point where they can do their CVQs and so forth, I think last year or year before last, we had the first set of students coming out with the Caribbean qualifications, vocational qualifications in the territory from that. So it was a whole suite of things that we looked at. But the reality of life is simply this. There's a new minister, there's a new government that the people voted for, and they're going to have their own policy directions. And that is that's just the way it is. So sometimes it's not a matter of whether something might be right or wrong. It might just be that the persons who are the decision makers at this time have a different view, and those are the persons who have the mandate from the people to make the decision that they make.
I mean, you're really good because you answer them questions in the most diplomatic way. I can't get you to say what I want you to say.
The truth is so easy to come out.
I'm going to get off of politics a little when I'm watching my time manager to make sure I'm on good track.
Sure.
Would you consider running for a public office again?
It's not a simple question.
I know.
I'll tell you why it's not a simple question. When I go back to why I ran, I remember when I put a committee together, an exploratory committee of persons. And we met the very first night. And there was a young lady who ended up becoming my private secretary, Zaverna. And I knew her because I knew her family lineage and so forth, but I was never really that close to her at that time. And she came to the meeting with somebody brought her, I think it was. And everybody was gone, getting ready. Yes, Myron, you should go. And she said in the room, "Why are you running?" And I look across and said, "Where this little girl come from here?" But you see, I think there was one president one time that question sank him in the presidential run because he was asked that question. It could have been Kennedy, and he wasn't prepared for the question. But when the question came to me, I knew deep down inside why I was doing it. I spent a good portion. My mother sent me to Antigua for school. Coming from Antigua, believes in the grammar school system and all the rest of it. Sent me away to finish school. And living in the Caribbean and of course island hopping, you get to see how the economies of those countries work. And then when you come back to BVI, your home, you now see things a little differently. One of the things that I noticed when I came back, which I did know before, I should say, is that when you look, Karia, from Fish Bay, all the way down to Prospect Reef, and you look at that building, that business, you can see that those are owned primarily by BVI landers. Even though the businesses inside may not be BVI businesses, they are owned by BVI landers. When you look at the other Caribbean countries, it's somebody from somewhere else owned that. I'm saying that it is something that sometimes we take it for granted, but it needs to be protected. And that was the impetus. That was one of the main reasons. There was another reason. I got sufficiently close to government during the time when I ran the first time. I was not impressed. I saw some things happening there that, as somebody younger at that time who had invested in the country, I wasn't comfortable. Because at the end of the day, regardless of whichever government is in, you have to wish them well.
Of course.
And you have to try your best to help them to succeed, because at the end of the day, it's not about them. It's about making sure that this country is protected and it works for the people of the BVI, including yourself, because none of us will do well if the country isn't doing well. And in the context of my question, whether I would run or not, it has to be that I feel that need to do so again. It has to be that my concern about the direction of the country is weighing on me the way it weighed on me 8-9 years ago. It wouldn't be that Myron get up and run again because he lost and he want revenge. I'm not that kind of human being.
Okay.
I don't have that kind of time to waste. I'm 48. I made 48 last month. I'm too young and I'm too old. So there's some things with my life personally that I would like to do. So I don't have much time to waste to just go and run for politics just because I want to. I feel as if you lost the election and now you want. No, that's not me. I can make a life
outside of that.
Outside of that, I think I've demonstrated that.
We can get to that just now.
So it's not about that. But if the calling is there, if I feel as if the country is in danger, I'm going to get up and present myself again. Yes.
Fair enough. Ladies and gentlemen, you're hearing from Mr. Myron V. Walwyn. He is no stranger to the camera, no stranger to the BVI, really no stranger to the region. We are very proud that you have chosen to come in this space to retell your story. We'll be back in 2 minutes and 2 seconds with more from Mr. Myron Walwyn.
Flow is giving you bigger savings and better bundles. Light up your life with our Spark, Flame, and Fire bundles with speeds of up to 200 megabits per second. Watch your favorite TV shows, follow the latest news on Flow TV, and stay connected with loved ones on the BVI's fastest fiber network. To find out more about our bundles, visit our website at discoverflow.co, British Virgin Islands, or call our customer care center at 1-800-804-2994.
And we are back. Welcome back to Real Talk 2020. I am your host, Karia Christopher, here with Mr. Myron V. Walwyn. We spent the first half hour speaking about life in politics. I tried to get you to speak about your legacy. You kindly let me know you ain't ready to die yet. I understand that. And really some of the challenges that you face as a man in office, some of the things that we as locals take for granted. I think once somebody puts themselves out there, we forget that they're actually a human being. Yeah. We forget that there's blood coursing through their veins. We forget that they're married with children, and these things have domino effect. So I was very happy and very pleased that you were able to kind of tell us that, yes, you're a man in office, you're a man of many talents, but there's a lot going into when you put yourself out there. The last thing you spoke about was, were you willing to go back into office again? And what stuck in my mind, it's still right there. You talked about looking from Fish Bay right down to Prospect Reef and naming the places that primarily belong to Beaver Islanders, and that brought you a sense of pride. That's my understanding. Yes. And you compared us to some of the other Caribbean islands. One of the things that, the few things that I don't think, and please correct me if I'm wrong, that you were not able to do in your public life, and tell me how that translates to you now being a private man, is to prove yourself as a true Beaver Islander who have had and still have the most love for the British Virgin Islands. Why is there some sort of, for lack of a better word, a stain that persons are not seeing you as a BV Islander? What's going on there?
Well, yeah, it's an interesting question. I certainly see myself as a BV Islander. I don't think nobody more who born in the BV more of a BV Islander than me. We have some work to do collectively as a community. Right after the election, I had some persons who were talking with me, and the whole issue of xenophobia came up. And I'm one of those persons, Karia. If you work closely with me or know me closely, I don't put much weight on gossip. I try to practice it, not to do it. It's difficult, but I try not to do that, because whenever you make a decision or view something through the eyes of unsubstantiated information, most times you're wrong. What people are calling xenophobia is actually fear. And it has to be looked at that way. I like to tell stories. I'll give you a story. When my mother sent me to Antigua to school, I lived with my aunt. My aunt had about 10 or 11 children.
Oh, wow.
Some were grown and the majority were around, some were around my age. So the house was a full house. She had the room and everything, but it was a full house of persons. If you came to my aunt's house, you wouldn't know that I wasn't her child, because she treated me like one. She had the ability to make her children feel special without making me feel as if I was not her
Like an outsider.
Yes. And that is what we have to try to cultivate in the BVI. The concerns of BVI landers can't just be swept aside. We can't do that. The persons, I don't like the word indigenous. I think we need to try and stop using that word,
okay, fair
because
enough.
it's not the word to use. But the persons who have more of their roots embedded in the BVI, their fears and their concerns cannot be ignored. They have to be addressed. You have to make persons who have their roots embedded in the territory feel comfortable. The numbers are small, and when you see bigger numbers coming in, you feel as if you're being misplaced in your country. And you can't just relegate it to say you don't like people who come from outside. That is not the approach, because it'll never get any better. It is something that we have to drill down and take a look at. We probably need some help.
Really?
No, we probably need some help.
As a country, you
as
feel
a
that
country
way?
because there are people who do these things, you know. You go out and you study and you see how you get your society and your country to be much more integrated. Because when, for instance, if you give belongers and so forth to persons, and they become a belonger in name, I don't know if I would just want to be a belonger in name.
You'd want to invest.
I want to be a part of. I want to feel integrated. I want to feel as if I'm a part of the community.
And you think...
And there's some work that we have to do.
So we're lacking in some things here in the British Virgin Islands.
I am saying that in any society that has the sort of makeup that the BVI has, with so many different nationalities, with only so much of a land mass and space and so forth, and the fact that the number of BVI landers, rooted BVI landers, is smaller. It's so much smaller
And the general populace.
compared to the general population. It is something that anybody in authority should not ignore. We have to find a way to get the country more integrated.
Let me ask you this, and I get what you're saying, I truly do. In the few interviews that I've already done, every single living one touched on this in some way, shape, or form, and I get it. I certainly get it. And as you rightfully said, indigenous, which I understand and I agree is not the right word. It just feels like it just feels wrong.
Yeah.
But those persons who are BVI landers are in the smaller minority to the general populace right now. However, do you think it's fair that those of us who are in the minority should be outdone or outshunned by, I hate to use the word expats, but persons who come in, meaning it has been said that they have now the biggest voice, and so we as BVI landlords are very passive by nature. So the folks that are here now, I believe that they're most likely acting out of fear because you see that your piece of the pie is getting smaller and smaller. And I want to paraphrase something that you said, and correct me if I'm wrong. You said something like, persons who are indigenous, and we're going to keep using this word, that's not the right word, and please forgive me, audience, should not be entitled to things. You should have to work for something. That was something that you said, and it caused a big hoopla. As someone who is not in public office now, who is in a private practice with lots of businesses attached to your name, do you still feel the same way? Do you not feel like as a BV Islander, you should get more than John Doe, who is from St. Kitts, versus you who now belong to the BVI? Should you be on the same platform as a private citizen now?
Before I answer the question, all right, Karia, directly. And that's why I said I believe it is something that we need some sort of a study on. There are universities that do this sort of stuff.
Okay.
So it's nothing new. There is a very important symbiotic relationship between rooted BV Islanders and the expatriate community. The truth be told, one can't survive without the next. The ability of many of us to pay for our houses is because people can rent them.
True.
The ability for us to open businesses is because we get people with the expertise to come and work in those businesses. When you look at financial services, as much as we don't like to hear it, financial services is a global business. It operates around the world. It's people answering the phone in China, in Hong Kong, in different parts of the world, saying to use BVI corporate structures to do your business. I am saying the relationship is too important to both parties for us not to have some serious talks and introspection, and to see how we can bring more cohesion to the whole mix of things. One of the things that we have to also look at, because it is segmented in so many different ways, in a dangerous way. Karia, your mother and father from here. None of my parents are from here, but I'm from here. But there's some people who would see you different from me.
True.
I born here, you born here. So if our concern is that BV Islanders are outnumbered, rooted BV Islanders are
Get more
outnumbered.
children.
No, part of it is we keep segmenting ourselves. That is part of it. Because if you're born here, I'm born here, your parentage is different from mine, that's why we're born here.
Right.
You can do a thing here more than what I could do.
So I should not be on this level and you here. We're supposed to be on the same
I'm
level.
saying that within the same voice of saying that we are outnumbered,
we still
you're
inside
still
cutting each other down.
Yes.
I get that.
And that makes
I get that.
that makes it even smaller, because a growing number of persons are like
I
me.
get that.
You have a growing number of persons who either one parent in from here and one from here, and then you have the people who become belongers in the country. You see
There's
the
a
problem?
whole layer of different BV Islanders or belongers.
If we got the unity, or if we get the unity right, the numbers will be bigger. But there are some issues that we have to address.
I agree.
And I submit to you that they're not going to be addressed on their own simply like that. We need to take the bull by the horn, and we need to get everybody on the same page in terms of how we want the direction of this country to go. But everybody has to be on board.
But let me say this. You like to tell stories, I can tell stories too. I agree with what you said in terms of we ourselves splitting each other up in so many different pieces that we will never get cohesion if we definitely don't see the same picture. I get it. But there's also something about respecting somebody's home while you're in it.
Yes.
And whatever your views are, we have to agree that there is a huge disparity. I remember when we had Hurricane Irma, and we had folks, I heard them in my own ears. Oh, you told you, think I was going to see the hurricane destroyer, good for you, and those type of very hurtful things. And so that is a big part of why there's such a big division. I'll tell you this. Hunter went to school last year. She has a blue passport, but she's a BV Islander, period. She knows nothing but up there.
Yes.
She called me the other day, one of her classes, American history or something, they were mandated to watch Harriet, the movie. And she and I had a discussion. I said to her, very calm and stern, because I know my child. I said, you don't know anything about America. Yes, for all intents and purposes, you're American for them, but for us, you're one of us. So she could not relate to Harriet. She was like, slavery was how many hundreds of years ago? Why they up there still bawling about that? I said, listen, don't you ever say that in a classroom. People might tell me I'm wrong, but you have to respect somebody for how they feel in their country, because you haven't walked that road. And so while all the little black girls in there still were upset about their triple, quadruple grandmother and grandfather in the railroad, even though they didn't have it personally, Hunter couldn't relate to that because she didn't have that experience. So the point I was trying to make is, I said to her as a parent and as somebody who wants my child to adjust in somebody else's country, you respect what they have to say in American history. You can have a conversation, you can add to it, but don't you dare judge them on what they felt 500 or 600 years ago. So I bring that back to here. I personally feel, and I try to get away from my personal feelings, but a big reason we have such a big disparity here in the BVI is that a lot of persons from abroad, they're very vocal on BVI, and just think they're too big. They think we're too big for this. And then we get insulted and then we push back, and that's where that friction is.
But you know the thing is, the truth really, Karia, it's not unique to the BVI, you know.
Indeed, but we're small, so we feel it.
Yeah, it's smaller, the land space is smaller, and we have a lot more nationalities than some of the other countries because of financial services and tourism and so on. But it's nothing unique to the BVI. So when people say, a BVI and think that they're different. Sometimes you go to Antigua and they look down on the Guyanese. I've seen it.
Indeed.
I've heard some very disparaging things said about the Guyanese nationality and Dominicans and different people by people in Antigua and different parts of the Caribbean. So what I'm saying is not unique to BVI, but we have to still find a way to weave a tapestry of cohesion.
Understood.
It's important for our very survival as a people, that we live in peace. We live in unity. We find a way to do that. I saw it, and we can do it because it came out after Irma.
For a very short time,
for
but it was
a very
there.
short time.
It absolutely was.
And from
there.
time, I tell my friends, from time Pantry Chicken van open and we started to get ice. We went back to the same behavior of trying to fight.
It's true. You're absolutely right.
And it says that if
because you're right. From the time people started to get back to the normal way of life. So then what does that say? That we need to have another destruction?
No, it says that the effort is there. We can do it. We just have to make a greater effort. But I think we need some assistance.
Look, I've never heard somebody say that. So, for you to say that you think that we as a country need some assistance, that's something. Not just
the BVI, but I'm just saying the countries, particularly in the Caribbean, that have this sort of an issue. The same way that countries develop a national development plan and so forth, you probably need somebody to help, because public education, understanding the importance of the relationship between the expatriate community and the BVI community is important. Because some of us who even say, some of us who might say some of the things, I have an apartment, I born here. If I say, if them people move to my place, how I get pay? So we have to. There are benefits in the relationship, and the persons coming in the BVI must also respect the culture of the BVI.
It's a two-way.
It's a two-way street.
Yeah.
It's a two-way street, but we both have to know how to receive and work together, or else we're gonna lose a lot.
I get you.
If that doesn't happen.
I get you.
Yes.
You when I opened up, I said, Mr. Myron Walwyn is here in his full sartorial splendor. When I'm TV, you got to really say exactly what you said. I said something like he's still wearing his Gucci. For the record, I don't know if it's Gucci, but he's sharp like a tack. But
I have a customer, you're making all kind of joke with the
But my point I was trying to make is, you look good. You look healthy, you look well, so you're doing well. A lot of the money that you've made, and let's not pretend that you came out of politics and you're broke. That's not the, I mean, I don't have his bank account, but I mean, we know. A lot of your wealth or your successes came from the hospitality industry. You have near every restaurant in the BVI, and I've been to every single living one of them. There has been a change in the gas in the major one. That's not up for discussion. What I want to ask about now is the coronavirus.
Yes.
With you making a vast amount of your income and having hundreds of people on your payroll, many times you depend on the hospitality industry. The restaurant is a very hands-on place. It has been clearly noted that the coronavirus is spreading by, you know, dirty hands, bad hygiene. Do you think as a country right now that we're doing enough to educate persons in the health and hospitality industry to protect businesses such as yourself?
Well, you can't go wrong with public education on the matter of the virus, coronavirus. And I want to answer your question more specific, more general,
Okay.
rather than just to the restaurant business. For instance, I'm not sure if you're aware of it, I'm sure you are, that the U.S. State Department issued a statement, a communique, a couple days ago, advising American tourists not to go on cruise ships.
Yes, yes.
I want to look at it in that wider context,
Yes.
because that is a very serious matter that will have major implications for the economy of the Virgin Islands. And certainly, if they have said so in relation to cruise ships, the same concept would apply to flying. So we have to take a look at that and brace ourselves as best we can for what may come. There have been a number of viruses that have come over the years. For instance, you had the bird flu, and you had SARS, and you had all sort of other things. But what was interesting today was that it was elevated to a pandemic. The last time you had a world pandemic was, I think, in 2009 with N1H1, I think, the flu. And it is something that is not going to just have an effect on the restaurant business, but it's going to have an effect on the economy, the world economy, and of course the economy of the Virgin Islands. And so we have to all do what we must, what we can, to listen to the health experts, listen to the information that is coming from the government. It's going to require us to do things in a different way. Because we're a small community, we all hug and touch and feel each other. Right. So it's going to be very difficult for us. Yeah. But we have to listen to what they're saying in terms of making sure that we exercise social intelligence, don't get too close, don't congregate in big numbers, wash your hands as much as you can, don't put your hand in your mouth and those sort of things. The public education, I think, needs to be widened a bit more so that people can brace themselves for what is to come. But once you have people going in a country and leaving a country, and you have movement of people, the chances of people coming in who might have that virus is highly possible.
Listen, when you say, and this is not a downplay on any government, and they just told me I have 4 minutes. They out of order. How is it an hour finished already?
It's an hour already?
Exactly. That's exactly what he just told me. Just give me my countdown.
The time flies when you're having fun.
As somebody who is in the business community, I work with trade, I see people every day, and as a parent, as somebody just in the society, you read, just like how you're reading, and you want to know what happens, what it definitely will trickle down on you. Ignorance is bliss, and I feel like persons should not panic, because that would be the worst thing, but I also feel like we do need to have more information. I asked my daughter, Cody, did the school have the desks and the chairs washed down? And because children are the breeding grounds for these kind of things, they keep their hands in their faces all the time. So I would love to know that this is government, private schools, every place, start from at least there. clean out the places, and I'm not being paranoid because I know about these things, but
Yes.
this is something that's easily caught.
Yes.
And so you worry for your friends, your family, for yourself. And as a business person, you definitely worry about a trickle-on effect. Because now somebody like me would say, let me not go to 7 today. I'll stay home and eat my cheese and bread because I don't want to be in a space. So do you have any trepidation at all about, because I know it will pass. I definitely know it will pass. But do you have any worries at all about how this would affect you as a businessman?
Well, I've just said it essentially because once it affects the global economy, again, we just talked about the cruise ship and the airlines.
But you didn't say you were concerned.
Certainly, it would expect. I am concerned.
Okay.
Certainly, it would affect people's disposable income.
Yeah.
And their ability to come and do some of the other things that they would normally try to do. As a matter of fact, it has affected even our financial services.
Of course.
I can recall, for instance, a couple of weeks ago, waiting on some information to do for a client. When I followed up and asked the client, well, what's taking so long? Said that the whole office in Hong Kong, they had gone home because of the coronavirus. So it is something that certainly will have an effect. The virus might, for instance, be short-term in nature, but it can have long-term effects.
Indeed.
And you can see that the countries who have more resources, who know a lot more than we do, are bracing themselves.
Of course.
The Bank of England dropped the interest rates.
I just saw that, yes.
The United States, you see what's happening on the stock market
Dropping.
there. You see university closures. People are saying, we're going to teach you
I'm looking out to have my daughter will have to come back
So-
home. Those are the things that are affecting all of us.
All of these things have effects on the economy of the Virgin Islands because of the way it's constituted.
I promise you, in my mind, there's about a gazillion more questions that I have for you. But time is up. I cannot believe it.
Yes.
It is only fair that I give you 1 minute to really talk to the general public about 2 things: loving and losing and bouncing back. It has to be about bouncing back. I mean, I just put you on the spot just like that. But
Loving and losing and bouncing back.
because I felt that you loved your space. I mean, losing is a hard word, but that's what it was. And it kind of rhymed too, right? So
Yes.
and then it's important because the reality of why I chose this space and this show for this season is to highlight positivity. So it's important that we understand that even in the perils of anything that's negative, there has to be a light at the end of the tunnel. And it's really how you change the trajectory of your life to make it the better for you. So I think you're the perfect spokesperson
a lot
for
of
that.
these things, Karia, has to do with motive. If your motive for things are right, then you can reconcile your thoughts and your feelings much better. If we're talking about politics, my motives are right and they're still right. And you respect democracy. You learn from whatever mistakes you may have made. I am one person, I'm practicing myself again, not to have regrets because everything that didn't go the way you wanted it to go, you have to bear in mind that things happen for a reason.
Indeed.
And you accept that. And sometimes you get off track to get back on track. And if we're people of faith, you just have to trust in the Master, trust in His plan. It's His will, not yours. And you go out and do the best that you can, continue to do what you're doing. The ducks will line up.
And there you have it. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Myron V. Walwyn, again, no stranger to our community, and I guarantee you no stranger to the entire region. I thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to kind of really tell us your story in your words, because it's good when we can hear it directly from the horse's mouth. So as busy as you are with all your million restaurants and law firms and everything else, it's important to see the face behind of all of these conglomerates.
Oh, Lord.
Flow. Thank you, Flow, for allowing me to have this awesome, amazing platform. I really don't take this job for granted. for not 1 second. I understand that when people see and hear me speak, they expect for me to say things that are true, are valid, and to be open and honest, not to steal somebody's slang. And so I appreciate all of the love and the support and even the criticism, because it helps me to be better. So Flo, I appreciate you having the confidence in me. My sponsors, I appreciate you. And the community, this BVI community, which I love dearly, and now really the world. I appreciate having this space to really do what I love. So Mr. Myron V. Walwyn, fans out there, supporters out there, Flo BVI, thank you, and we will see you next week, same space, same time. Real Talk is proudly powered by Flo, sponsored by James Tonman Construction and Nagico Insurances.